You've been searching for yourself in places you'll never find you, because you were never lost. You were just listening to the wrong voice. There's a strange kind of exhaustion that comes from trying to become someone. Not the tiredness of the body, but something deeper. A weariness in the soul that settles in after years of chasing versions of yourself that were never really yours to begin with. You wake up and immediately reach for your phone. You scroll through images of lives that look more complete than yours. You compare your beginning to someone else's middle, your struggle to someone else's highlight. And somewhere between the first scroll and the last, you forget that you are not a project to be perfected. You are not a brand to be polished. You are not a performance waiting for applause. You are something quieter than all of that. Something that doesn't need validation to be real. But we've been taught to treat ourselves like rough drafts. Always editing. Always improving. Always one breakthrough away from finally being enough. We've been told that who we are right now is just a stepping stone to who we should become. That this moment is only valuable if it leads somewhere better. And so we run. We chase titles, achievements, milestones. We collect experiences like trophies, hoping they'll add up to a self we can finally be proud of. We curate our lives for an audience we'll never meet, while the person living inside our own skin remains a stranger. The Sufis speak of a truth that stops seekers in their tracks. You are what you seek. Not what you'll find after 10 more books, 3 more retreats, or 1 perfect morning routine. You are already the thing you've been searching for. The awareness reading these words right now, that's it. That's the treasure. Not hidden, not far away. Here. Now. In the middle of your ordinary, messy, beautiful life. But we don't believe it. Because the mind is a merchant. It sells you the story that peace lives in the future. That clarity comes after confusion. That you'll finally relax once you've earned it. The mind says, not yet, not here, not you, at least, not this version of you. And so you improve, you optimize. You meditate to become less anxious, read philosophy to sound wiser, practice mindfulness to finally feel present. You turn even your awakening into another achievement. Another mask, another performance of who you think you should be. But every moment is whispering something you keep refusing to hear. It's saying you don't need to become anything. You need to stop pretending you're not already whole. Think about the last time you felt truly at ease. Not because everything was perfect, but because for a brief, rare second, you stopped trying to be different than you were. Maybe it was in the car, driving nowhere in particular. Maybe it was in the shower, letting the water run without a single thought about productivity. Maybe it was petting a dog, laughing with a friend, or standing in your kitchen at 2 a.m., eating leftovers in the dark. In those moments, you weren't trying to be spiritual. You weren't monitoring your energy or checking your alignment. You were just there. And that version of you, unguarded, unrehearsed, unapologetic, that's who you actually are. Not the polished version you present in meetings. Not the composed self you perform on social media. Not the better version you promise you'll become once you finally get your life together. The real you is the one who exists when no one's watching, when there's no script, no audience, no pressure to be profound. And here's the part that changes everything, that self doesn't need fixing. You've been taught that your natural state is flawed, that without constant self-improvement you'll fall apart, that without discipline, routine, and relentless growth you'll become lazy, lost, unworthy. But a tree doesn't strive to be more tree-like. A river doesn't take courses on how to flow better. They simply are what they are, without apology, without performance, without the exhausting work of self-construction. You think your ego is who you are. But your ego is just a story you've been telling for so long, you forgot it was fiction. It's the character you built to survive, the armor you wore to feel safe, the mask you put on so the world wouldn't reject the real you underneath. And the real you underneath, it's been waiting patient, silent, watching you chase yourself in circles, knowing the whole time that the finish line was right where you started. Every moment whispers this truth, in the pause between breaths, in the space between thoughts, in the quiet that arrives when you stop performing long enough to just be. It whispers, you are not becoming. You are already. You are not broken. You were never broken. You are not a problem to solve. You are a presence to witness. But you've been so busy climbing that you forgot to notice there's no ladder. There never was. You've been standing on solid ground the whole time, convincing yourself you're falling. So what if the spiritual journey isn't about finding yourself? What if it's about stopping long enough to realize you were never lost? What if awakening isn't a distant destination, but the simple, stunning recognition that you are already here, already whole, already enough? What if every moment has been whispering this truth, and you've just been too busy trying to improve yourself to hear it? There's a particular kind of suffering that only humans experience. Animals don't feel it. Trees don't carry it. It's the suffering of becoming, the belief that who you are right now is not enough. And who you could be tomorrow is everything. You feel it when you wake up and immediately start negotiating with yourself. Today, I'll be better. Today, I'll be disciplined. Today, I'll be the version of me I'm supposed to be. As if the person you are in this moment is just a placeholder, a draft, a mistake to be corrected. And so you spend your life in a strange civil war, part of you trying to force yourself into shape, another part resisting, collapsing, sabotaging your own plans. You call this growth, but really, it's just violence dressed in self-help language. The mind loves the story of becoming. It feeds on it. Because as long as you believe you're incomplete, the mind has a job. It gets to be the strategist, the planner, the one who knows the way forward. It gets to tell you what's wrong and how to fix it. And it will never tell you the truth, that nothing is wrong, that there's nothing to fix, because then it would lose its power over you. So it invents problems. It amplifies flaws. It compares you to others and finds you lacking. It takes your peace and turns it into a checklist. It takes your joy and measures it against some imagined standard. It convinces you that happiness is conditional, that you'll feel whole once you achieve this, heal that, become someone different. But here's what the mind will never admit. You can't become what you already are. You are not a work in progress. You are not an unfinished painting waiting for the right brushstrokes. You are not a broken thing that needs assembly. You are life itself, experiencing itself through a temporary body in a brief flash of time. And that's not something you achieve. It's something you recognize. The Zen masters understood this. They didn't teach their students to become enlightened. They taught them to stop pretending they weren't already awake. One master was asked, "What is enlightenment?" He replied, "When you're hungry, eat. When you're tired, sleep." The student was confused. "Isn't everyone already doing that?" The master smiled. "No. When most people eat, they're thinking. When they sleep, they're worrying. Enlightenment is just doing what you're doing completely. This is the doorway you keep walking past. You think awakening is somewhere else, something more. A peak experience, a cosmic download, a moment when everything finally clicks into place and you become someone new. But awakening is just the end of pretending. It's the moment you stop trying to be anything other than what you are, right here, right now. And that terrifies the mind. Because if you're already whole, then what? What's left to do? What's left to achieve? If you're not climbing towards some better version of yourself, then what's the point? And that's exactly it. There is no point. Not in the way you've been taught. The point isn't to arrive somewhere. The point is to be here, fully, completely, without the constant background hum of inadequacy. But we've built entire industries around the opposite message. Self-improvement, personal development, optimization, biohacking, as if you're a machine that needs better software. As if the goal of life is to become a more efficient, productive, polished version of a human being. And don't misunderstand, there's nothing wrong with growth, with learning, with evolving. But when growth becomes an escape, when learning is just another way to avoid being with yourself, when evolving is code for, I hate who I am right now, then you're not growing. You're just running. You're running from the one thing that could actually set you free. The radical acceptance of what is, not as a resignation, not as defeat, but as a deep, liberating recognition that this moment, exactly as it is not your enemy. It's not something to transcend or fix or improve. It's the only place where life is actually happening. Every spiritual teaching points to this, but we keep missing it. We read about presence, then spend the rest of the day planning the future. We learn about non-attachment, then immediately attach to the idea of being non-attached. We practice mindfulness as a way to get somewhere else, calmer, clearer, more enlightened, and completely miss that mindfulness is just being where you are. The great trap of the spiritual path is turning it into another destination, another achievement, another way to become someone impressive. You meditate so you can tell people you meditate. You read philosophy so you can sound wise. You practice gratitude so you can feel like you're doing it right. And all the while, the real you, the aware, awake presence underneath all the striving, is watching, waiting, wondering when you'll finally stop performing and just be. Every moment whispers, stop, look, listen, not to something far away, not to some hidden truth buried beneath layers of trauma and conditioning. Just listen to the sound of your own breath. Feel the weight of your own body. Notice the space in which all thoughts appear and disappear. That space doesn't need improvement. It doesn't have a story. It doesn't care about your past or your future. It's just here, witnessing, aware, still, and that's you. Not the you with a name and a history and a carefully curated identity. The you that is simply here. The you that is not a noun, but a verb. Not a thing, but an ongoing happening. Not a self, but a presence. You've been trying to build a better cage when the door was never locked. There's a moment in every spiritual journey when the search collapses. Not because you found the answer, but because you realized the question was the problem. You've been asking, who am I? As if the answer is something you need to discover. As if you're a mystery to be solved, a puzzle with missing pieces. But the question itself creates distance. It turns you into an object, something separate, something you can examine from the outside. And that's the illusion. You can't find yourself because you're not lost. You're the one looking. Alan Watts said it perfectly. Trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. You are not something you can grasp, label, or pin down. You are the space in which everything arises, the awareness in which thoughts, feelings, and experiences appear and dissolve. And that awareness doesn't need a name. It doesn't need a story. It doesn't need to become anything other than what it already is. but we've been conditioned to treat ourselves as projects, as problems to solve. We gather tools, meditation, therapy, journaling, breathwork, and we wield them like weapons against our own suffering. And yes, these practices can help. They can bring clarity, peace, relief, but only when they're not being used as escape routes. Only when they're not just another way to avoid being here, now, exactly as you are. Because here's the paradox: peace doesn't come from changing yourself. It comes from accepting yourself so completely that change no longer matters. It comes from meeting this moment, this breath, this sensation, this thought with such full presence that the need to be different dissolves. This is what the mystics mean by surrender. Not giving up, not defeat, but the deep, restful recognition that you don't have to fight reality anymore. You don't have to resist what is. You don't have to improve your way into worthiness. You are already here, already whole, already enough. And the moment you truly see this, everything shifts, not because you become someone new, but because you stop pretending you're not already free. Think about children. Before they're taught to perform, to achieve, to become someone impressive, watch a child play, completely absorbed, unself-conscious, not worried about doing it right or looking foolish, just utterly, totally here. That's not innocence, that's presence. And somewhere along the way, you lost it. Not because you grew up, but because you learned to believe the voice in your head that says you're not enough as you are. That voice is not you. It's a habit, a conditioned pattern, a story inherited from a world that profits from your insecurity. And you've been listening to it for so long, you think it's the truth, but it's not. It's just noise. And underneath the noise is something vast, still, and luminous. Something that doesn't need validation. Something that doesn't require improvement. Something that simply is. The Sufis call this the beloved, the part of you that is always home, always at peace, always in love with existence, exactly as it unfolds. And the journey to the beloved is not a journey at all. It's a remembering, a return, a recognition that you never left. You've been carrying the treasure while begging for coins. You've been sitting in the ocean, dying of thirst. You've been standing in the light, searching for a candle, and every moment has been whispering, look here. You are here. This is it. But the mind resists. It says, this can't be it. It's too simple, too ordinary. Enlightenment is supposed to be dramatic, a breakthrough, a transcendence. And so you keep searching, you keep waiting, you keep believing that the next retreat, the next book, the next insight will finally deliver you to yourself. But you don't need deliverance. You need stillness. You need to stop. You need to rest. Not as a strategy, not as a technique, but as a return to your natural state, the state you were in before you learned to chase, before you learned to perform, before you learned to distrust your own enoughness. And when you stop, really stop, you notice something astonishing. Life doesn't fall apart. You don't become lazy or lost. Instead, you become available. Available to the present moment. Available to beauty. Available to connection. Available to the quiet. Ordinary miracles that were always here, but that you were too busy improving yourself to notice. You notice the way light falls through a window, the way coffee tastes when you're not rushing, the way your breath moves in and out without your permission, without your control, without your effort. You notice that life has been living you the whole time, that you are not the author of this story. You are the story itself, unfolding, breathing, being, and in that noticing the burden lifts. Not because your circumstances change, but because you stop resisting them. You stop needing them to be different. You stop treating every moment as a stepping stone to some imagined future where you'll finally be okay. You are okay now. You were always okay, even when you didn't feel okay. Even when everything was falling apart. The part of you that is aware of the falling, that's the part that never falls. The part that witnesses the chaos, that's the part that remains still. Every moment whispers this, in the pause between heartbeats, in the silence between words, in the space where thoughts dissolve and you remain. It whispers, you are not the storm. You are the sky. You are not the waves. You are the ocean. You are not the seeker. You are the sought. Stop seeking. Start seeing. You are already what you're looking for. So what happens when you finally hear it? When you stop running and let the whisper land? When you realize you were never broken, never lost, never incomplete? Nothing dramatic. And that's the beauty of it. You don't transform into someone unrecognizable. You don't suddenly levitate or speak in cosmic riddles. You don't transcend your humanity. You just become more human, more honest, more here. You still feel. You still struggle. You still forget and remember and forget again. But there's a softness now, a spaciousness. You're no longer at war with yourself. You're no longer gripping so tightly to the idea of who you should be that you miss who you actually are. This is what it means to live from the whisper, not as a philosophy, not as a belief system, but as a lived reality. A quiet knowing that hums beneath everything else. You start to notice how much energy you've been spending on maintenance, maintaining your image, maintaining your story, maintaining the illusion that you're in control. And slowly, gently, you let it go. Not because you have to, but because it's exhausting, and you're tired of pretending. You stop curating your life for approval. You stop performing depth. You stop trying to sound enlightened in conversations, as if wisdom is something you wear like a badge. Instead, you just speak. You just listen. You just show up, imperfect and real. And somehow that becomes more magnetic than any persona you ever tried to build. People notice. They don't always have words for it, but they feel it. They feel the absence of pretense, the presence of something solid, something true. And it gives them permission to drop their own masks, even if just for a moment. This is the gift of seeing through the illusion of becoming. You stop demanding that others become something for you. You stop needing them to be more aware, more evolved, more conscious. You meet them where they are, not as a project to fix, not as a soul to save, but as a presence to witness, as another expression of the same life that's breathing through you. And relationships change. Not because you set better boundaries or communicate better, though maybe you do. They change because you stop needing anything from them. You stop looking for validation, completion, or proof of your worthiness. You just show up, open, available, here. The same shift happens with your work, your creativity, your purpose. You stop asking, what am I meant to do with my life? As if there's some cosmic blueprint you're failing to follow. You realize that life doesn't have a script. It has a pulse. And your job is not to figure it out. Your job is to feel it, to move with it, to let it move through you. You do the work in front of you. Not because it's your calling, but because it's here. Not because it will lead somewhere impressive, but because it's what's alive in this moment. And that's enough. More than enough. That's everything. You stop waiting for permission to live. You stop waiting for certainty. You stop waiting to feel ready. You just begin, messy, uncertain, imperfect. And in the beginning, you find the thing you were always searching for: aliveness, not happiness, not peace, not enlightenment, just the raw, textured, ordinary aliveness of being here, in a body, in a world, in a moment that will never come again. And yes, there are still hard days. days when the whisper feels far away, days when the old patterns resurface, and you find yourself spiraling into self, judgment, comparison, fear. But even those days are different now, because you know, somewhere underneath the noise, you know, this too is just weather. This too will pass. And the sky, the vast, unchanging awareness that you are, remains untouched. You learn to hold it all more lightly. The highs and the lows, the clarity and the confusion, the moments of grace and the moments of mess. You stop dividing your life into spiritual and not spiritual. You stop treating some moments as more sacred than others. You see that it's all sacred. The meditation and the grocery shopping, the silence and the small talk, the mountaintop insight and the mundane Tuesday afternoon. Every moment whispers, and you don't have to be perfect to hear it. You don't have to be healed or whole or enlightened. You just have to be willing to stop, willing to listen, willing to let the noise settle long enough to notice what's underneath. And what's underneath is not some grand revelation. It's simple, stunningly simple. You are here. Life is happening. And in this moment, right now, nothing is missing. You don't need to become anything to deserve this moment. You don't need to earn your place in it. You are not a guest in your own life. You are not an imposter waiting to be found out. You are the very presence in which this life unfolds. The awareness reading these words, the breath moving in your chest, the listening that's always been here, even when you forgot to notice. This is the invitation, not to become someone new, but to stop pretending you're not already whole, not to find yourself, but to recognize that you were never lost, not to arrive somewhere, but to realize you've been home the whole time. Every moment whispers who you are, not who you should be, not who you could become, who you are, right now, right here, in the middle of the mess and the beauty and the ordinary, extraordinary miracle of being alive. So stop searching, stop striving, stop performing, just listen. The whisper is here. It's always been here. And it's saying the only thing that ever needed to be said. You are enough. You have always been enough. You are home.